Alright, people, so I'm here with your Raw Legends Night review, and what an awful, terribly produced, poorly run show this was. I mean, it was just awful from start to finish. The whole concept of it was terrible. So it was Legends Night, right? Well, it didn't feel like it. It was legendarily bad, and let me explain why, just on an overall level here. I'll get to kind of reviewing some of the matches and segments here, but it was Legends Night, right? And you had some legends on the show, right? They were telling us, Ric Flair's going to be there, Hulk Hogan, Booker T, all these people. So I guess the idea of them doing something with like a Hulk Hogan, who's probably the greatest wrestler of all time, is having him in a 30-second backstage segment with Drew McIntyre, and then having him watch the main event sitting in a chair on the stage. So that's WWE's idea of featuring a legend on the show. On the other hand, they advertised Booker T to me. They're like, well, Booker T's going to be on the show. The only thing I saw Booker T on the show was him sitting down and then clapping at the end of the main event. So good job, WWE. That's a job well done. You take one of the, main guys of the Attitude Era, and that's all you can do with him on a 3-hour fucking show. And same thing with all these other people. Big Show, he's in a fucking 1-minute backstage segment. Mark Henry's in a 1-minute backstage segment. All these people that you could use to, involve in the show in some way or another, put them in a segment, have them interact with a wrestler on the current roster in some way, have them do a promo. No, we're just gonna involve them in 45-second backstage segments when we have 3 hours of content to fill. Are you telling me that I would rather see fucking New Day in the Miz cut a worthless 10-minute promo than to see maybe Hulk Hogan come out there and start the show, or something like that? Just terribly done. Terribly done. The legends were not used properly, and I felt it was a slap in the face to them. So we have the Miz TV segment to start off the show. I can't tell whether Miz is a heel or a face. And this is a problem I see with WWE now. It's very hard to tell who's a babyface and who's a heel. There's no kayfabe anymore. There's no storylines anymore. And it's gradually been getting like this. So New Day comes out and they said they're going to host their own show. Just a lot of fluff, a lot of filler. It wasn't funny. It was stupid. It was boring. And it was a waste of time. And this is what I'm talking about. You have these fucking 4 guys come out here and cut a worthless promo, which the only reason was to set up the match where you have the New Day defeating Miz and Morrison. And you could have just cut this promo out altogether and just had the fucking match, because this promo was just a waste of time. Again, you could have had Booker T come out there. You could have had Hulk Hogan come out there. You could have had anybody come out there. Any one of these legends come out there and give them a 10-minute promo. Instead, you waste people's time with this bullshit. So you got the New Day defeating Miz and Morrison. The match was okay. It was a decent little match here, but I'm just so sick of New Day's antics during the matches. Like, this is wrestling, and you got fucking Kofi Kingston going down on all fours, twerking in the middle of the ring. It's like, how could I take this team seriously if they're doing that shit during a fucking match? It just makes you look like you don't give a fuck. It makes you look not tough. And this is, I talk about this too. WWE makes people look not tough. Wrestlers are supposed to be tough, or at least they're supposed to look tough. You look at a guy like Brock Lesnar. That guy looks tough. Kofi Kingston twerking in the middle of a match does not appear tough to me. Then you have 2 divas I've never heard of defeating Ric Flair and Azuka. And again, a slap in the face to the legends. You got Ric Flair out there, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Doesn't even get an entrance. They just pan into the match, and they're like, well, we got Ric Flair out here. Really? On a 3-hour fucking show where you have a shit ton of filler, a shit ton of bullshit that nobody wants to see, you can't give Ric Flair a 1-minute entrance, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time? No, apparently they cannot, because they're very fucking retarded there in WWE. And then they're trying to do this little storyline during the middle of the match, which actually could have been entertaining, But again, they don't devote any time. They just throw it in there like, oh, well, we heard Ric Flair was talking to one of the divas that Charlotte was wrestling against backstage. Instead, they could have actually done a backstage segment with it. They could have showed like Ric Flair, doing something with this girl. They could have alluded to the fact that Ric Flair was trying to get some pussy, but they can't do that because it's TV PG, unfortunately. There you go, WWE trying to make a show about violence and trying to advertise it towards children. That makes a lot of sense. But they could have invested time in this storyline. They could have made it a funny angle. They could have played off the fact that Ric Flair's a known ladies' man. They could have said Ric Flair's trying to get some pussy, so he screwed his daughter over. But instead, it just really felt like an incomplete storyline. They never followed through with it, and it was a bunch of bullshit. And it didn't make any sense. Then you have this is what I'm talking about. You got a backstage segment with Hulk Hogan. You couldn't actually do a legitimate promo with Hulk Hogan or anything like that. No, you got to do a backstage segment. And that's all they did with Hulk Hogan on a 3-hour fucking show that was advertised as Legends Night. The number one legend gets wasted. Then you have Matt Riddle defeating Lashley. A couple decent moves, but overall not a good match. Just boring. This is what I'm talking about. No concept of baby faces and heels. The heel, who is Lashley, loses in a babyface fashion when Riddle taps out and the ref doesn't see it. Again, no concept of babyface heel. Then you got Dana Brooke defeating a diva I've never heard of. Just a 1-minute terrible match. Throwaway match. And this is what I'm talking about. Would you rather see Dana Brooke defeat a diva in a match that has no consequences, no impact of anything, just a waste of time, just filler? Or would you rather see Booker T cut a promo with somebody? Or would you rather see Hulk Hogan cut a promo with somebody? Or Ric Flair cut a promo with somebody? They just waste these legends, and in their place they put terrible fucking matches that nobody wants to see. And they wonder why their ratings are in the toilet. And then you have IRS and Molly Holly backstage for a second. Again, this is what I'm just repeating the same shit over and over again because WWE did the same shit over and over again on Monday, which is totally wasting these legends. It's not often you get people from the Attitude Era on Raw, and when you do, they should use them wisely. They should involve them with the main roster. And you may say, well, Ruthless Randy, you always complain about Goldberg and, these people that don't have it anymore coming back. There's a difference between having a single promo. Like I've been referencing as of late. I remember when Bret Hart came back in 2012 and had a segment with CM Punk. One segment on a show, which was entertaining. Versus some guy like Sting coming back and being thrusted in the main event picture, or a part-timer being champion. That is totally different from doing a one-off thing of a segment to get somebody on the main roster more over. Do something that's entertaining for one night. Then you have Orton defeating Hardy in just a slow, boring match. Probably the worst match of the night. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that like Randy Orton. And there's no doubt about it that they could do a lot with his sadistic character. But his matches are just so slow. They're so boring. And I always hear people talk about how Orton's in such great shape. Yeah, you're going to be in such great shape if you continually do rest holds throughout the entire match and only do like 6 moves throughout the entire match. Of course you're not going to get hurt. But this was just a shitty, slow, boring match. And I did not enjoy it at all. Then you get the Luchas defeating the Hurt Business. Just a short, pointless match. And again, what I'm talking about, you have these jobber matches on the show when you could be involving the legends. I think there was an AJ Styles match too with some random guy, which I didn't see. So I'm sure I didn't miss much with that though. And then the main event, you got Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre. And I don't know what people think about Drew McIntyre, but to me, he's just a stale, generic babyface. There's nothing that I look at. I look at this guy and it's like there's nothing that sets him out. What is he, a Scotsman? Like he wears a fucking skirt coming down to the ring. That's his gimmick. I mean, are you serious? He shoves a sword into the ring, or into the ramp during his entrance. I mean, this is his gimmick. This is supposed to be cool. This is supposed to be tough. I mean, he's just another fucking generic babyface to me. Nothing that sets him apart. This match was okay, despite what the non-existent fans were chanting. You know, the fans were chanting, "This is awesome." I mean, the non-existent fans were chanting, "This is awesome." You know, the production team was putting in fake chants to try to influence what I think about the match, which I do not respect. You know, if I was in charge of putting the fake chants into the into the system, you know what I would put in? I would put in, "This is bullshit. This shit sucks. Fuck the creative team." You know, I would definitely put in chants like that, not "This is awesome." Because if this is a standard for awesome in WWE, I would advise them to rethink their creative team. Because this match, it wasn't terrible. I'm not saying that. It was an alright match. It had a few good spots in it. The Spanish fly from the top rope, the table spot. Even though Drew McIntyre didn't powerbomb him correctly, it was still a good spot. It was a decent match, an okay match, but it wasn't great by any. And again, if that's our standard for great, then I would, like myself, stop watching this company, stop watching Raw on a weekly basis, and stop wasting your time with this shit. And then, if this show wasn't shitty enough, with them just totally wasting the legends and totally disrespecting the legends, making them look like complete fools, making them look like zeros, and not using them properly. I mean, you got fucking Mark Henry on a fucking scooter. I mean, you just couldn't have him stand up for 2 seconds. You gotta have him on a fucking scooter, rolling away from Randy Orton. And you could lose in dignity. You could put somebody over in dignity. But they have Mark Henry, who was billed as the world's strongest man, just rolling away on a scooter, looking like a complete absolute pussy. I mean, you could just, there's just so many things on this show that you would look at and say, that was shit, that was shit, that was shit, that I just don't have enough time to talk about them all in detail. I would be here for fucking 4 hours. I'd be here until the fucking sun goes down, if I would analyze every shitty thing on this show, because it was just awful. But, and then you have, again, to top it all off, to top all the bullshit up, if there wasn't enough bullshit on this show, you have Goldberg return again, because the other 2 times weren't enough of a disaster. Apparently he didn't bury enough young talent, so he has to come back and bury more young talent. And he comes out, and the Genius Creative Team has him say that Drew McIntyre is disrespecting the legends. Even though Randy Orton's been prancing around backstage doing 45-second promos throughout the entire night disrespecting legends, he accuses Drew McIntyre of that. So great job, creative team. Great job on making sense. And by the way, that Randy Orton thing, I was actually excited. I'm like, I actually thought of this before the show. I'm like, well, with Randy Orton, they could do the Legend Killer thing. Bring back the Legend Killer. Have him RKO somebody. Get him some heat, right? Because he is a heel, I guess. I thought he was a babyface because, again, he's feuding with Bray Wyatt, who I thought was a heel. But apparently, I don't know. I just don't know with this company. So I'm like, well, they could have Randy Orton, you know, maybe RKO The Big Show, RKO Mark Henry, RKO somebody and get him some heat. But no, instead he just does 45-second backstage promos, which don't amount to anything. Again, just incomplete stories. They don't have full segments with these legends. Just 45-second backstage segments that don't amount to anything. Instead, you could have had Randy Orton come out there and confront somebody, cut a promo, and then RKO them. But no, that would be too complicated for the creative team. So anyway, you got this storyline that makes no sense with Goldberg confronting Drew McIntyre and accusing him of disrespecting people, which he didn't do. And it's weird because you got Goldberg, who's a babyface, telling this to another babyface. It just makes no sense. It just makes zero absolute sense whatsoever. But what else would you expect from this creative team that has no ability to create anything except garbage and bullshit that's nonsensical? So then they start talking for like a second, and then Goldberg pushes him, and then the show just ends like that. It's almost like they were on a crunch for time and they had to end the show. It's like the last thing you see is Goldberg pushing down Drew McIntyre, and it's like, well, are they gonna brawl? Are they gonna have a fight after that? Like the show just ended like that. I mean, it was just awful. And the fact that they brought back, and I haven't even talked about the fact that you got a 55-year-old now that's going to be in the main event, apparently, at the Royal Rumble. I mean, how many times is this company going to put people that are 25 years past their prime in important spots in this company that could be used to build the new talent of the future that's actually going to be wrestling on every pay-per-view, that's actually going to be on Raw on a regular basis in the next 5, 10, 15 years? How many times are they going to continue to waste opportunities to build the next John Cena, to build the next Batista, to build the next Edge, to build the next Undertaker? You're never going to do it if you keep giving these opportunities to has-beens, to people like Goldberg. That I don't mind if Goldberg comes out and has a one-time promo with somebody. I don't mind if Undertaker comes out and has a one-time promo with somebody, or if Shane or anybody. You could pluck anybody from the Attitude Era and have them do something entertaining on the show. And I'm not opposed to involving them in some way on the show, whether that's a manager role or a GM role. There's a lot of ways you could actually involve these people, or even doing a feud with somebody to put them over, or to get them some more attention. I'm not opposed to that at all, as long as they could still wrestle, as long as they could still go, and as long as, you know, you're still building new talent. But to give them the championship belts when they're only there 20% of the time, to have them constantly involved in main event roles that should be used to be putting new talent over, is a recipe for disaster. And it's really showed these last 5 to 10 years. I mean, you go back to the Attitude Era. They weren't bringing back guys from 20 years ago to be involved in the main events time after time after time. The Attitude Era was building new stars. Austin, Rock, Jericho, etc. They weren't relying constantly on people to fill main event spots on pay-per-views that wrestled 20 years ago. No. And even if you look forward to, like, you know, when they did Hogan Rock at WrestleMania, or they did Michaels Flair at WrestleMania, like, they were using these people strategically to get other people over. Like, Hogan put Rock over, and he still had what it takes to wrestle a decent match. You know, was he the man he was in his prime? No, but he could still go out there and wrestle a decent match. So I'm not saying these people have no role to play on today's show, but you have to involve them in the right way. And WWE is not using these people effectively. Again, you got people like Hogan coming back, and you only involve him in a 45-second backstage segment. I mean, that is such a slap in the face to Hogan, and it's so illogical. And then you go to the other extreme of the spectrum, where you're putting people like Goldberg over new upcoming talent like Kevin Owens. This company is just totally ass backwards, and it's one of the reasons I stopped watching. I cannot take 3 hours of this bullshit week after week after week. My brain cannot take it. I could take a lot of things in life, people. I could go through a lot of hardships in life, but admittedly, I am not tough enough to go through 3 hours of wrestling every fucking week. You couldn't fucking pay me to watch this shit. And I'm very frugal with my money, but you could not pay me to watch wrestling. I love making money, people, but I cannot accept money to watch this show. I got too much dignity, I got too much pride, and I got too much respect for myself to put myself through 3 hours of this shit every week. And it's not only 3 hours of Raw. It's 2 hours of SmackDown. It's NXT. It's 205 Live and the pay-per-views and any other shit they put on the network. So if you want to be a true wrestling fan, you have to put yourself through probably 10 to 15 hours of content a week. And mind you, that's content that's mostly shit. So you have to subject yourself to 15 hours of torture every week for the rest of your life just to be a dedicated WWE fan. Now, if you want to be a dedicated fan to The Walking Dead or any TV show, out there, any popular TV show, you got to put yourself probably through about 15 hours a year of content. So a normal show puts out about 15 hours, right? Because The Walking Dead, what I remember, they would do about 14 episodes a year, 15 episodes a year, something like that. So you would have to put yourself through 15 hours of Walking Dead material a year. On the other hand, with WWE, you got to watch 15 hours of material a week to watch it. So there you go, people.